Ever since the release of Avengers Endgame, people have been asking me to talk about the MCU final battles. Well, the day has come. Today we're going to stop and rank all 23 MCU final battles from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sean, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place, and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the 23 final battles inside of the MCU. You clicked on the video because you love these movies, so do I. We're all fans here together. Let's have a friendly conversation. Don't be rude to each other, though we are going to disagree at times. And one final thing before we get started, you can pick up a number of the shirts that I wear inside of my videos at my merch store. Whether you're talking about this Thanos Saves the Universe shirt I'm wearing right now, or one of my I Talk Movies Too Much shirts that a bunch of my fans have already purchased, they are available in my merch store at that link down below in the description. With that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is Thor: The Dark World. It's a forgettable movie with a forgettable villain, and it leads to a forgettable finale. There's a little bit of fun portal jumping that goes along a little bit inside of this, but because you don't care about Malekith at all or understand his plan or what he's trying to do, it just feels like Thor showing up somewhere to battle a guy that you don't care about with no stakes that feel urgent or imminent. So this battle makes absolutely no impact on you, and there's no reason to rewatch it or care about anything inside of it. So unfortunately, much like the movie, it's the weakest in the entire MCU. Number 22 is Thor. Now, this is a movie that I enjoy a number of things about it, but one of the strong points isn't the final battle inside of the film. Loki is a great villain inside of the MCU, but he's also not necessarily one of the best physical threats inside of the MCU, and he's battling against Thor, the God of Thunder, on the Rainbow Road. And so it just kind of feels anticlimactic. And it even feels like because of Loki and his trickery, there's a lot of really clever things they could have done with him to make him a better villain to battle off against Thor, but that's not really the direction things went. So you just end up with this final battle that just kind of... Coming in at number 21 is Iron Man 2. In and of itself, this isn't a terrible action sequence. It's always fun to see Iron Man blowing away a bunch of drones and battling another robot, and then you throw War Machine into the mix, and there's a lot of fun to be had. The problem here is that it just feels like a rehash of the finale of the first film, except without some of the emotional payoff that that film had. Here, once again, Iron Man is battling another villain in another robot suit, just in a different location and with War Machine joining in. So while it might be a little bit bigger than the finale of the previous film, it doesn't really do anything new. Bringing us into the top 20 is Captain Marvel. I think that this third act was a bit of a victim of one of the film's bigger flaws, which was they didn't clearly define Captain Marvel's powers in the film or give us an actual opponent or thing for her to battle that was a worthy opponent to her with her full potential. So when you move into that third act, she fully realizes how powerful she is. We see her in all of her glory. At that point in time, it starts getting very uneven as to how powerful she is, because she battles it out with Jan Rog and all these people in a room for like 10 minutes long while No Doubt is playing. And she's beating them up, but she's not killing them. And then the very next scene, she's taking out entire spaceships in a single move. So it seemed like they didn't clearly define how powerful she was, and they didn't fully know what to do with a character this powerful in a third act because of the villains that they had established. So for me, this one didn't fully land. It's one of the weaker aspects of the film. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, there's a few things inside of this finale that I thought worked really well, specifically the stuff involving Yondu, the emotional payoff with Star-Lord, the Mary Poppins line, but just in general, I thought that this finale was overly long, too much of just big CGI noise on the screen, and nothing that I found actually all that exciting. As soon as the Sovereigns show up, it's just like a wall of ships everywhere that it's just CGI noise to me. It's not exciting when there's just so much stuff happening, and then they're flying around inside of a big CGI living planet. That wasn't interesting to me, and even just the basic revelations inside of the big finale of the film with an orphan finding his father, discovering his father is a psycho that killed his mother, and then having to kill his father right after he discovered him is pretty distasteful to me. This one is distasteful, overlong, overblown. I just don't really like it all that much. At number 18 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, I find the entire third act of this film to be a lot of fun. It's a really good sequence, whether you're talking about Wasp jumping in and out of cars, kicking people in the face, Ant-Man going giant man and all of his shenanigans, or as the car shrinks down, you got Michael Pena freaking out, screaming everywhere. There's a bunch of really cool things about this sequence, and there's even a little bit of emotional payoff as you have Janet being rescued, but it doesn't really feel like a third act to a big Marvel film. It feels like a middle action sequence inside of one of these movies. So as fun of a sequence as it is, as much as I really do enjoy it, it's a sequence as you're watching, you're like, wait, is this actually the third act of the movie? Is this where we're ending it? Is this the final battle? So I can't really rank it really highly, even though I have a lot of fun with it. Then we have Iron Man. Now, I love the first Iron Man film. The film in general is one of my favorite films inside of the franchise. The actual final battle itself isn't one of the strong points inside of the film. It's kind of the stereotype inside of these films of the villain has the same powers as our hero, and it's relatively short by comparison to most of the other films inside of this franchise, and the movie in general is a little bit light on action, which could be one of its weak points. And so you have a movie that kind of builds towards this big showdown that it has a little bit of emotion as Tony has to kind of accept his destiny of being the hero, and it's a cool little sequence to see two guys in robot suits battling each other. But as for what they were able to do in later films, this one was not one of the strongest final battles, though once again, an enjoyable enough sequence. Number 16 is Spider-Man Homecoming, another movie that I really enjoy, but kind of feel like the final battle is one of the weaker aspects of the film. Now, there are some nice emotional elements inside of it, as you have Peter Parker having to go back to his original suit, accepting the fact that he's a hero and not trying to be an Avenger, not trying to be someone he's not, but going back to that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, trying to do the right thing. But the actual action, adventure, heist side of things isn't all that interesting. There's not a whole bunch of moments inside of it that I'm like, oh yeah, that was really cool. Whereas the rest of the movie had a lot of those moments that I thought were really cool. And it also doesn't necessarily have big payoff moments inside of it for me either. So while the general idea of what they were doing with Peter was pretty cool, the sequence as a whole, I don't think was the best execution of said ideas. Coming in at number 15 is Iron Man 3. To close out the Iron Man trilogy, I think they delivered the best finale of the three films by just cranking everything up a whole lot and letting everyone get involved. First off, you got all of the Iron Man suits kind of coming to the rescue inside of it, which is just a lot of fun to see. Then there's a whole bunch of other little technological advances that Tony has. So there's these cool shots of Tony jumping off of things and suits flying on top of him. There's elements to it where you have a suit coming to the rescue that doesn't quite get to save the day. Just written in a really clever way to make little laughs, have the heroic moments, and allow his suits themselves to be kind of a character inside of this. Pepper gets in on the action. You get to have Rhodey running around as well, looking for suits, trying to save the president. All in all, it's a really nice little action sequence. Now, Killian, our villain inside of it, isn't the most memorable. It doesn't lead to necessarily big emotional payoffs. It's just a sequence that I think is written with a little bit of a wit to it. Next up is Ant-Man. Our smallest hero gets the smallest final battle out of all of these movies that has the lowest stakes, but it also has a little bit of creativity inside the mix, and certainly is one of the most unique third acts, as it's set on top of a Thomas the Tank Engine little train set, which just makes for a fun environment. There's a bunch of clever gags inside of it that they kind of go with the technology and what they're able to do. Once again, it's not like about the world being saved or anything like that. It's much smaller, it's much more personal, and it works for what it's going for. Number 13 is Doctor Strange. Now, the last like 40% of this movie is kind of one continuous action sequence, so it's a little bit difficult to identify when you kind of go into the final battle. But what this movie does very cleverly throughout the entire last half of the film is do a bunch of different things. The CGI is creative in the way that it's used. Some of it looks like Escher drawings come to life. Other parts look like they're taking the visuals from Inception and cranking them up to 11. And then you move into the final little segment where he goes off against Dormammu, and they just use a clever idea inside of it of what if Doctor Strange created a time loop inside of it and started to torment Dormammu in that manner. While Doctor Strange might not be taking out the most interesting villains inside of the MCU, the way that he's taken out is quite interesting, so I have a lot of fun with this one. Then we have Black Panther. This one was frustrating for me because I think it works on a ideological character arc level, but I don't think it works really at all on an action movie level. The stuff with Killmonger and kind of the resolution there, the kind of changes within our Black Panther himself and Wakanda, all of that stuff is interesting and powerful. And even inside of the kind of warring factions of the people of Wakanda, that works. The specific action sequences with war rhinos and the bad CGI as Killmonger and Black Panther are falling into a pit, and even the layout of the sequence, I just don't think any of that is very exciting at all. So this is one that is interestingly, doesn't really have the action that I enjoy, but has emotion that is good. So it's kind of right here in the middle. Number 11 is Spider-Man Far From Home. I'll give you a spoiler warning right now. I will start talking specifics in about 10 seconds. I thought that this was a nice little cap off to this film with several different layers to it, with Happy Hogan getting to be a hero while not necessarily being a superhero. Great little funny joke where he tries to throw a shield like Captain America, and it doesn't go well for him. But specifically where they go with Mysterio, his kind of evil plans, trying to manipulate people, the drones, there's a lot of creativity inside of that. And even as you kind of have the final moments between Mysterio and Spider-Man, there's some twists and turns with the illusions and everything. I think where this one gets knocked back a little bit for me is that it was so outshined by that sequence earlier in the film where they went full Mysterio action. And if they'd found a way to put more of that cool Mysterio stuff in here, this one might have shot up to top 5 because it has some emotion inside of it. Lots of people get to spend time in the spotlight, but it's a sequence outshined by what happened earlier in the film. Kicking off our top 10 is Captain America: The First Avenger. On an action level, I just really enjoy a lot of what Joe Johnston does with his action sequences, the angles that he chooses, kind of the old-fashioned vibe to a lot of it. So seeing an old-fashioned type hero being shot this way, running around with guns, with shield, kicking people in the face, it's just exciting to me. Even in just the design of things, whether you're talking about the big plane or the long extended cars, it looks really cool to me. So a lot of it just pops inside of my brain. But what really makes this one stand out to me is kind of that relationship between Steve and Peggy, the sacrifice that he makes, and what they set up in this film that they paid off, 8 years later with Endgame was really cool stuff. This is a movie that I think is made better by Endgame, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that they are intertwined, that a later film can make something earlier better, and that's the case with this film for me. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy. This finale's got a little bit of everything. You got the big gigantic space battle, you got some combat inside of it, you got a sacrifice, and then you even have a dance off, and almost everything inside of it works for me. On the kind of the Nova Corps level, they decided to kind of personalize elements to it, so there's specific characters inside of it that you don't really like them, but you care about their opinion of our Guardians and the sacrifice that they make inside of it. And this is a movie that, because we care about the characters so much, and it's all about family and relationships, when you have a "We Are Groot" kind of moment inside of it, that should be really hokey and make you laugh in the wrong way, but it actually becomes a very touching moment that can pay off the fact that a character who says, "I am Groot," says, "We are Groot," really powerfully. And then likewise, something as goofy as a dance off in the third act of the film fits with the movie that they developed here, so that you can get there and you can almost be like, do I love this or am I cringing? I'm not really sure how I'm responding to what Star-Lord's doing right now. And then you understand what they're going for inside of the film, and it works for me. James Gunn, with his quirky sense of humor and odd characters, can make this bizarre, both traditional and completely unconventional third act work. Coming in at number 8 is Captain America: Winter Soldier. The Russo brothers did two things really well with this film. First off, they staged the action in a way that is kinetic, it's vibrant and visceral, and you get all of that inside of this third act as you're watching the Winter Soldier and Captain America duke it out while Falcon's flying around this big space hover carrier destruction machine. And then the other thing that they did really well is they built this story around the bond between two characters and the fact that Captain America is dedicated to his friend who was dedicated to him when he was weak. When he was weak, Bucky was there to rescue him, and now that Bucky is broken, he is there to save him. And when you have that visceral action coming to a head as the conflict between the characters relationally is there on display, it makes for a really nice, powerful finale. Then we have the Incredible Hulk. Now, I know that this is an unpopular opinion. A lot of you are going to have this one at the bottom, in the bottom 3. But for me, I think that this is a very effective third act that pays off the action that you're anticipating as well as the story arcs inside of the film. First off, you have Thunderbolt having to admit he was wrong and come to Bruce Banner for help to stop the abomination that he has created. So this kind of pays off and resolves one conflict, one villain inside of the movie, in that Thunderbolt has to turn to him for help, which is powerful in and of itself. You also have Bruce Banner kind of accepting his destiny inside of this as a hero that is a monster at the same time, as the movie's kind of been about him trying to fight all of this, get rid of it. And he's like, no, I need this. I need this to stop some of the evil in the world. That's powerful stuff. Third one, two big gigantic monsters battling each other. It works for me. And like I said, sometimes in some of these, I've criticized them for just being big, just CGI noise and everything. But here it's two creatures that very clearly, you know what they are, you know what they're doing, and they're doing big fun monster things. You get Hulk putting on guards as boxing gloves, using chains, saying Hulk smash, doing the smash deal with the vibrations flying out. It's what I want to see the Hulk do. I think that this is a third act that makes the film better, pays off everything before, and you get to see the Hulk smash. Coming in at number 6 is Avengers Age of Ultron. I've got a number of criticisms of this film, but the third act is not one of them, as the film's kind of bigger is better mentality absolutely works in this context. As in the first Avengers film, every character kind of gets their little moment in the spotlight to do their thing, be the hero. You get another kind of hero shot montage as the camera spins around our heroes taking out this army of Ultron bots. Inside of it, you get the sacrifice that's a sacrifice from Quicksilver that's also a payoff to some setup lines with him and Hawkeye and their kind of competition between the two of them. There's some really cool stuff between Vision and Ultron and kind of the final destruction of Ultron with that. Just in general, this is one of the best aspects of this film is the third act. Bringing us into the top 5 is Thor Ragnarok. This finale's got a little bit of everything. Of course, you've got a whole bunch of action with our Avengers going to war with Hela. You've got the Hulk battling a big, gigantic wolf. You've got Thor losing an eye, you get Thor gaining his powers, but it's not just the big action inside of it. You also still have all of the humor that was present throughout the rest of the film is still present inside of the finale. Even the Hulk jumping out of the spaceship is a payoff to a joke set up in the Incredible Hulk. You have Scourge kind of having a little bit of redemption inside of it. And one of the things that people forget about because this movie is so funny is that it has some heart inside of it. It has serious consequences and stakes as you have some powerful stuff between Thor and Odin, and then you have the actual destruction of physical Asgard. And even inside of that, there's a little bit of a lesson about what do we consider home. So for me, this is a finale that has everything that I love about the MCU kind of jam-packed into this one finale, so it's a top 5 for me. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America Civil War. In a lot of ways, this is the smallest stakes of all of the final battles here, but it's also the most personal as it's distinctly about Steve, because of his loyalty to his friend Bucky, was dishonest with his other friend Tony. Tony, feeling betrayed and being impulsive, wants to go to war with Steve over this, and you have two people who are emotionally compromised but friends at their core duking it out because of this and destroying a friendship and breaking the Avengers apart in the process. And then with the Russo's action, it doesn't need to be building, destroying, world consequence action to be interesting and memorable. No, they just used these characters and abilities, choreographed and shot it in a way that makes it look really cool, and you end up with not the biggest but the most personal of the finales. Real quick before I give you my top 3, if you've enjoyed this ranking, check out this playlist up above once this video is over. It's got all of my other top MCU MCU rankings, the movies, the heroes, the villains, all of that fun stuff. It's right up there. If you've enjoyed this video, I've got more MCU content right there. In third place is Avengers Infinity War. If Captain America Civil War's finale was the most personal and one of the smallest stakes, this one is on the polar opposite of that, as we are talking about the highest stakes imaginable, a intergalactic war on multiple planets for the fate of the universe. Inside of that, you have the more personal battle on Titan with a handful of heroes battling it out with Thanos to try and get that glove off of him, where the faults of our characters are what leads to their failure, specifically in the case of Star-Lord. But inside of the battle, there's a lot of wit inside of it of how would Doctor Strange team up with all of these characters to do some cool things. What cool things could you do with Doctor Strange? What would Tony do in a desperate attempt to stop Thanos inside of this context? And then on the other hand, you have the Battle of Wakanda that is an all-out war with a massive army, a ton of heroes, a ton of just different armies inside of it for that matter. And it pauses inside of it to give our heroes different moments in the spotlight to be the hero, to put people in jeopardy in different ways, and to have reasons why our team would be compromised inside of it. But they also just play to our heroes' actual nature. So as the Battle of Wakanda starts, who are the two people that run in front of everybody? Black Panther and Captain America, which is so true to who those characters are. When you finally have Thor show up, it's just this incredible, massive, epic moment, and they're able to pause for just a second to put some jokes in there about beards. You have Steve Rogers meeting Groot inside of it, but you have an angry Thor out for revenge, and even inside of that, making mistakes that lead to the big conclusion of this film, where they were bold enough to have our heroes lose. I just love the finale to this film. I love this film in general, and so easily it's top 3 for me. Our runner-up is the Avengers. For me, this finale is just a pure fun superhero finale. There's a simplicity to the fact of it's the first time our heroes came together and they're just battling it out against an alien invading army. And because of that, it just has basic heroism inside of it. You have each character doing their thing. Captain America being the leader, Iron Man being the guy kind of running circles around everything, trying to keep everything busy, Hulk smashing, and they pause for moments to have Captain America rescuing people. You have the sacrifice of Tony Stark inside of it, and invented kind of the basic template of what makes for a fun superhero third act final battle. So this for me, while it's not the most complex, it doesn't have the biggest of emotions. Everything that's there works for me, and even some of the weirder stuff they did with some of the humor involving Hulk landed. So for me, it's a classic finale. But coming in first place is Avengers Endgame. It's hard to imagine how any movie could ever top what this finale did, as it was the payoff of both 11 years of buildup as well as the follow-up to such an excellent film in Avengers Infinity War, that they'd earned the right to just go all out on the fan service and have it really work. You kick things off by having the duel between Thanos, Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, which in and of itself is just a very exciting sequence. And as you're going through it, you have this moment where you start to see Mjolnir start to move a little bit, and then it flies and Captain America catches it. And I'm sure you guys were all in the theater, and just that was a special moment. That the payoff of that it goes all the way back to a little scene inside of Avengers Age of Ultron, and it's paid off so powerfully here, leading to this incredible moment of Captain America desperately trying to stop Thanos by himself with Thor's hammer and just tearing him to pieces. And at the end of it, you have Thanos' army show up, and Captain America, even though his shield is destroyed, he's beaten, stares them down, and it goes to this wide shot where you see the armies and just this little itty bitty him there, and he's ready to keep going. And then following up this incredible moment of Captain America grabbing the hammer, then you just get this little things, I'm on your left, and you start to see the portals open, and one of just, it's like, how can you top this moment of fan service in any type of film, as they so wisely crafted this film to have the rescue happen 20 minutes before this, but because so much stuff happens, you forget all these people have been brought back. And so in that moment, you're like, what's about to happen? Everybody shows up. Such a classic, iconic moment people will be talking about for a long time. And then once again, Captain America wields the hammer, says that iconic line, Avengers Assemble, battle breaks out. It pauses once again to give everybody moments inside of it, to have the reunions that you want to see that are emotional, to have the payoffs that sometimes have little jokes inside of them, all of them leading to this moment with the final sacrifice of Tony Stark, leading to this amazing moment of paying off his line at the end of the first film, I Am Iron Man. All of it to me landed, it worked, it's emotional, it's exciting, and it's the sort of finale that I was desperately looking for show times the week after the movie came out, because I just wanted to see it again with a crowded, packed audience. It's one of those films that people will be talking about. Yeah, I saw that opening week in the theater. You wouldn't believe how crazy the theater went, whether that's applause, shouting when he grabs the hammer, or just crying, dead silence as the portals open up. My wife was breaking, falling in tears as the portal sequence. And then, of course, at the sacrifice of Tony. This is an incredible achievement, and what the example of what you can only do if you've built the universe that Kevin Feige has built towards, and you can execute it as well as the Russos. Without question, number one is Avengers Endgame. If you enjoyed this video, remember to check out that playlist right over there for more Marvel rankings just like this one. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.